Chapter 30. Later that same evening, the phone rang. Gwendraeth James had just finished a double whisky and was watching the late-night news while trying to sort out the day's events in his head. The image of the dead Queenie Rogers, her neck snapped back at that odd angle, kept resurfacing as he knew it would. He was trying to push it back, forget police work altogether, forget both the occasional horror and the humdrum routine, the dead body and the interviews at Plas Wern Las, the way they all looked at him when he questioned them. The phone kept on ringing. "It's me," the voice said when he eventually picked it up. It was someone who'd had too much to drink. He knew who it was immediately. Anne Davies. She sounded like a voice out of his past, although she wasn't. She sounded like Sheila, his ex-wife, or any number of women he'd once known. "You know who it is, don't you?" "Yes." "I want you to come over here and I want you to have me." "No, you don't." "What do you know about it?" "What I know is you don't want me. You want Parker Merriam." "Parker's dead." "I know." "Have you found out who did it yet?" Behind his other concerns, that was the main question that was preying on his mind, and she tapped right into it. He was supposed to find out who'd committed the first murder, and he'd failed up to this point. And now there was a second one. "Well?" "You know the answer, don't you?" "What are you good for then?" "That's why you phoned me, innit? To find out." "You can be a bastard, can't you?" "Can I?" "You know you are. Come over and drive him out of my head, you bastard." The line went dead. He put the phone down and tried not to feel anything. There had been so many occasions like this in his life when he'd failed to respond at all. That was partly why Sheila had left him, Gwendraeth knew. If he had been able to say something like, "Don't go," she probably wouldn't have done it. Even so, he felt part of himself trying not to react now. He switched off the TV, and he poured himself another drink, but didn't touch it. He went into the hall, and he reached for his coat and felt in his pocket for keys, and then he turned out most of the house light, except for the one in the lounge, and then he went out into the night. He drove slowly, because he already had a couple of whiskies, and he didn't want to attract the attention of any friendly patrol officers. Gwendraeth James reached the village of Sunanant in about 20 minutes, approaching it from the opposite end this time. He drove past the shuttered post office, which gave notice of the rise in rural crime, past the petrol station and the pub, which had closed down 2 years ago, until he came to the fork at the bottom of the hill. Waterside, Anne Davies' house, was on the left. The porch light was on, and through a crack in the curtains he could see more light inside. He parked the car on the gravel in front of the house, and when he got out he could smell the dampness of the night air and hear the sound of the river. Both helped him not to think about anything as he gave the unlocked door a push and went into the room. She was lying on the settee in front of the window. She was wearing a black nightie and a robe which was pushed up, showing her legs. She was lying back in a slump position, and she was holding the Scrimshaw skeleton she had showed him earlier against her breasts. "You took your time," she said. "You were sure I'd come?" "I was." "Why?" "Because you're a bastard." He went over to her. There was a bottle of Teacher's on the side table by the settee, and he could smell it on her breath. He sat down next to her. and he tried not to touch her legs. "You wanted to see me," he said. His voice was as flat as he could make it. Anne Davies giggled. She poured herself another drink, and she poured one for him. When she handed him the cut crystal tumbler, he couldn't help noticing it. "My mother's," she said. She patted the skeleton, which had shifted slightly. "Like this." "What's this about?" he said. He sipped his whiskey. "Sex," she said. "Sex and death." "And Parker?" "I don't want you to talk about him," she said. "I don't want you to talk about him unless I want you to, and I don't. I sent Jennifer to stay with my friend Margaret for the night. I made sure she was safe, and then I opened the bottle and I started drinking, and then I phoned you." "I see." "No, you don't," she said. "Not really? Do you?" "I thought I did." "That's because you're arrogant." "Am I?" "Yes," she said. "You're a bastard, and I know who you are." She moved the skeleton off her chest and leaned against him. "So that's how it is." He knew he would have to be careful. He didn't really want to sleep with her, but he didn't want to hurt her either. He knew that even if he did, it would just be a temporary distraction for her, something to take away the pain. Part of him was watching what he was doing, even as he was doing it. He put his arm around her, and with his other hand he lifted the whiskey glass to his lips. That did him some good. "Tell me about Wyndham Spencer James," he said quietly. "Why does he want the Scrimshaw?" Anne Davies was quiet for a while. Then she said, "He wants everything." "Does he?" "Yes, including my mother." "Your mother's dead?" "Yes." "She must have been older than him anyway. 10 years, at least." 14. I didn't stop him chasing her, though. He was still a teenager. He caught her in the big pantry, and she gave in. They had an affair. A child. It was adopted. She slumped against him and fell asleep. He pulled her robe around her as best he could without disturbing her. Then he sat there in the dim light, thinking. The entanglements of Plas Wern Las increased by the moment. What had started out as a relatively straightforward case, a car in a gully with a dead body in it, was becoming more complex all the time. And Wyndham Spencer James was right in the centre of it. Gwendraeth didn't know exactly how long it was that he sat there with Anne Davies leaning against his arm. He must have fallen asleep himself, because when he woke up suddenly, his left arm was numb, and it was 5 minutes to 1. He disentangled himself as gently as he could. She didn't wake up. Then, after finding out where the bedroom was, he lifted her up gently and carried her into it. He placed her on the bed and pulled the coverlet over her. She woke up for a little while as he was doing this, and he kissed her on the cheek, and then she fell asleep again. He went into the lounge and he finished his drink, and then he let himself quietly out of the front door. He got into the car and he started it up, and he drove home as normally as he could. When he got there, he went straight into the shower, and then he went to bed. And all the while, he still couldn't get Queenie Rogers or Wyndham Spencer James out of his head. "You mean you want to arrest him?" It was just after 9 o'clock the following morning. Gwendraeth James sat in Chief Superintendent Harding's office wearing a clean shirt and a tie. He was feeling better than he had the night before. "Bring him in for questioning," he said. Harding was sitting behind his desk, underneath the photograph of himself on the beach with his family. "Why, exactly?" "Wyndham Spencer James is everywhere in this case," Gwendraeth said. "He knew Parker Merriam. He inherited most of his money. He tried to buy Plas Wern Las, and when he was young, he was tangled up with Anne Davies' mother. None of which is a crime. I found his picture in a file where Henrietta James's murder should have been," Gwendraeth continued, "and I don't like it. And on that flimsiest of excuses, you track him down on his own land when he's in the middle of a professional consultation. Despite what I said to you previously, you track him down and you insult him. He doesn't own that land yet. I checked. He's just taken out an option. Irrelevant. You don't deny that you confronted him, do you?" It's better not to say anything for the moment. Gwendraeth looked straight across the table towards Harding. He noticed a flake of dandruff on his superior's shoulder, and his usually immaculate black hair was slightly out of place. "I wanted to shake him up," he said after a while. "Why?" "Because he makes me suspicious. And look where that's got us." Harding got up, started to pace around the room. "I think you know I won't give you permission to bring him in. It's not justified. Because he's got powerful friends. I warn you, Gwendraeth, you're walking a very thin line, and part of me is just waiting for you to falter." Gwendraeth James walked the long way back to his office. He didn't want Harry Warden or anyone else to see him in the state he was in. He was still feeling angry about Harding's refusal to let him bring Wyndham Spencer James in for questioning. When he pushed the door open, Harry Warden was sitting at his desk, going through a pile of reports. He looked up. "Tricky, was it?" Gwendraeth didn't say anything. He went over to his own desk and he opened the bottom drawer and took out his penknife and he began to pick his nails with it. "Bad sign." "What?" "You and that penknife, if you don't mind me saying, Chief. Last time you took it out, you cut a cuticle and Sergeant Pritchard had to lend you a sticking plaster. So we can't bring Wyndham Spencer James in for questioning. It's not justified, Warden. And I'm apparently walking a very thin line." "Doesn't take a genius to tell you that, does it? I could have told you that for free." "That's enough, Warden," Gwendraeth James said. He worked at his middle finger and then he put the penknife down. "Doesn't mean the mice can't use other tactics, though, does it?" "Pardon?" "Cat. Mice, Chief. If one's away, the other can explore different avenues." "Spit it out, Warden, and stop being so metaphorical." "What's that then, Chief?" "In your case, Warden, a metaphor is an obfuscation." "Oh, one of them," Harry Warden said. "But in this case, the other avenue is an interview with a historian who is an acknowledged expert on the history of the James family. And apparently, she's a good-looking woman, too." She was dressed in black, with a short jacket, tights and boots with 4-inch heels. She didn't look much like Gwendraeth's idea of a historian. She had short black hair and a heart-shaped face and heavily made-up eyes that seemed to have come from somewhere else. As Harry Warden joined them across the bridge, Gwendraeth James shook her hand quite formally and got the immediate impression that despite her appearance, she could be quite formidable if crossed. "Ffion Roberts," she said, returning his handshake. Down below them, the river, swollen with rains of the last week or so, ran high between two stone arches. Gwendraeth introduced himself. He knew she'd already talked to Harry Warden over the phone when he'd made the appointment. It's not often I meet a detective who's named after a river. She had a light, pleasant voice. She could be teasing him, he thought, but it didn't seem like it. You know which one, then? Couldn't miss it, she said. After country houses, sea trade, my speciality. That's why I wanted to meet you here. The one you're named after is not far away, is it? They were on the bridge below the hill where Gwendraeth's Uncle Edward lived. In front of them, to the side of the brown and swollen river, were the remains of old wharves and docking places. Winter was definitely on its way in. Even this time of day, the light was noticeably weaker. A cold wind blew up the river from the sea, and as he and Harry Warden followed Ffion Roberts down the steps at the side of the bridge, he was glad he'd brought his jacket. You need to forget about railways, she said, as she led the way past a jutting stone quay. On either side, someone had cleared away the brambles so that access to the path was easier. A man in a padded anorak walked towards them, followed by a piebald bulldog, who seemed to have some difficulty breathing. High up to the right, Gwendraeth could just make out the gatehouse that stretched across the road leading to his Uncle Edward's bungalow. This was a landscape that he had known for a long time, and yet, following Ffion Roberts, he suddenly became much less sure about how deep his knowledge went. What do you mean? It took Harry Warden to ask the obvious questions, and this time Gwendraeth didn't mind. I mean, Ffion Roberts said, turning towards them with a quiet authority, that we think in separate sequences of landscapes, despite ourselves. Roads and railways tend to reinforce that. Rivers are different. They give you a different perspective. If you follow this river, you get to the sea. And once you're on the sea, you can go anywhere. Like where? Like Africa for slaves. Or South America for fertilizer. From here, that's what I mean, she said. We've forgotten so much. We've forgotten how in the 19th century the sea represented wealth and opportunity for some. Those who were most able to take advantage of the situation. Like the James family. Gwendraeth was beginning to become impatient. He appreciated the information up to a point, but he wanted to get to the root of the matter. Josiah James, the aunt's father in particular, Ffion Roberts says. She was standing on the edge of the quay. Below her, the grey-brown river seemed to suck at the stones. He was the richest of the three brothers. He made a fortune bringing back guano from South America. He's the one who bought Plas Wern Las? Ffion Roberts nodded. He worked out a way to turn bird droppings into cash. He imported it, and he bagged it, and he sold it. He bought the house at the tail end of the boom, just before the railways finished it. He bought the house, and he put his daughters in it, and then he went to America. Bit odd, isn't it? Gwendraeth found himself drawn in despite himself. Perhaps he was restless. Perhaps he knew it was the end of an era. She turned towards him, as if sensing something. But you don't really want to know all this, do you, Inspector? What you really want to know is what's in Plas Wern Las that could lead to 2 brutal murders. There was an unexpected directness about Ffion Roberts. wasn't quite like anyone he'd known, Gwendraeth thought. "Any ideas?" he said, after a while. He was trying not to brood on the effect of the house on other people. On Anne Davies, for example, who only the night before had held the Scrimshaw skeleton close to her chest. Ffion Roberts looked thoughtful. "Perhaps Josiah was greedy," she said. "Perhaps he made enemies." "But that's over 100 years ago," Harry Warden protested. "Greed," she said. "Greed often produces envy and violence." "I don't need a lecture on the deadly sins," Gwendraeth said, turning back in the direction of the bridge. "That's because we deal with them all the time," Harry Warden said to Ffion Roberts. There was a trace of a smile on his face. As Gwendraeth started to walk back down the path, he thought he saw a familiar vehicle parked just underneath the bridge. A Land Rover. "Are you meeting someone after us?" He turned back towards Ffion Roberts. "As a matter of fact, I am. A friend." "You mean Martin James?" Gwendraeth said. "What if I do?" "So we're not the only ones to get the benefit of your expertise." He knew he sounded bitter. He didn't care. "I'm a historian," Ffion Roberts said. "Are you telling me you want to claim a monopoly?" "Not on you," Gwendraeth James said. Then he made his way back to the bridge.